What up? What up? It's Raphael with NBA Draft Junkies again. And this is part 2 of a 2-part series. Originally, I thought it was only going to be one, but the conversation was so good that we ended up spending an hour on the first 5. So I'm going to reintroduce my guest again, Jake from Jake in the Paint. Jake, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you for having me back.
Yeah, man, no problem. Anytime. All right, so we left off at number 5, like I said, on your big board. So take me to number 6. Who do you have as number 6 on your big board?
So at number 6, I have Deni Avdija from Maccabi Tel Aviv. I've seen some people kind of sour on him and slide him down their boards, and I get it. Like, he might not have that star potential you're looking for in the top 5, 6, whatever. But I think we can all agree, like, this draft is it's not great. We'll just put it that way. It's not great at the top. So when I look at Deni, I look at someone who I can pretty much picture where he's going to slide in on an NBA team and contribute and be a positive player. And that means a lot to me, considering he has some creation upside that I'm pretty interested in. And I'm not talking like primary Luka Doncic creation upside that he'll probably get as we get closer to the draft by people who don't really do their homework. But he's 6'7". I think he's a 4. The shooting has always been the big concern. He's like a 54% free throw shooter, like 60% free throw shooter. It's not good at all. Like, there's no sugarcoating that. But his mechanics he's done a great job of cleaning them up over the past 12 months. And something also, like, he's gotten a lot stronger. Like, if you look at his frame just from last summer when he was playing in U20s to now, he literally looks like a different dude. Like, I posted a meme and it was, I put 2 pictures side by side, and it was like first day freshman year and then graduation day, and it was Deni like last summer versus this summer. Like, he literally looks like a grown man now, and that's helped him in so many different ways, like getting to the rim, getting downhill as a slasher, finishing around help, and finishing through help. And then also a secondary rim protector. Like, he's super smart, and that's a big reason why I love him. He's always in the right place at the right time. He's always making rotations. He's always just thinking a step ahead, and he's only 6'8". He's not a super athlete, and I don't think he has a great wingspan, so he doesn't necessarily have like top physical tools for a great secondary rim protector, but he's so damn smart. He's great verticality, and just that added strength is going to help him inside. Like, there were a couple games where he would play EuroLeague and he was kind of getting pushed around a little bit, and it's normal. He's an 18-year-old playing in the best league, or the second best league in the world, and like, that's normal. But to see him make those physical strides and to see that trajectory keep on going up, that's something I'm super high on. Like, about the shooting, the legs are the biggest issue in my opinion. Like, I think his upper body is pretty clean, and he even cleaned that up a little bit during like the quarantine period. He still has his legs flaring out a little bit on pull-ups especially, and I think that's in the end the real problem. However, he's shooting the ball with a ton of confidence, and that's the big thing for him. So if he's playing with confidence, I think there's a pretty easy path for him to be a top 5 player in this draft.
Yeah, man, he came back from the break with his confidence on 1,000. Even though I think he had a 0-point game a couple days ago, or was it yesterday?
I don't know. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, he had a rough game a couple days ago. But other than that, man, he's been great. And I think that, like, on my list, I think when I do my next mock draft, I'm going to bump him up even higher. But I have to ask myself, am I bumping him up because he's playing and he has an advantage over everybody else? Because I haven't seen anybody live since March, and he's actually, we're seeing him against live competition. But I think the biggest issue is his shooting, and he's shooting the ball well since they've had the quarantine. He's shooting the ball well in the playoffs there. And then everything I've heard about him just from intel, I have a friend that's on the team, and I haven't talked to him directly, but I've talked to someone that speaks to him directly, and they were saying that his work ethic and just everything he does is very mature for his age, as far as like the time he puts in the gym, how he approaches the game. And so I think that like, if I'm going to swing for a home run in this year's draft, I think that he may be the guy that I'm swinging for the home run. Because I just like his potential. I like that you can play him at multiple positions. I really like wing ball handlers. So if you have like a scoring point guard that you may want to bring off the ball, then I think that Deni can play minutes at the 4, like you said. And so I think you just cause so many matchup problems if you have a 4-man that you can run 4 or 5 pick and rolls or just create off the dribble. But, free throw shooting is something that I am concerned about, especially late in games. Is he going to be aggressive late in games? Because, a lot of times if a guy is not wanting to be fouled, then when it comes crunch time, he's not going to be aggressive. He's going to be really passive and just kind of disappear and hide. And so I can't figure out why the free throw percentage is so low. It doesn't look like it's anything with his mechanics. It just could be, mental in a sense, as far as just, I don't know, concentrate. I don't know what it is, but I'm not too concerned about it right now. But it is something that if I put something that is a red flag, it would be his free throw shooting.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to figure it out for 2 years, and I still can't make anything of it. Like, it looks good. I mean, it's the same as a shot.
Yeah.
And it's just, if he wasn't shooting the three well this year, then I get it. But, like, he's shooting the catch and shoot three with a ton of confidence, and he has been. Like, he's been a good three-point shooter throughout the entire year. I'm actually, like, buying him as a catch and shoot floor spacer to a solid degree. My biggest concern for him, honestly, is just getting in the right situation in terms of fit and reps. Like, if you're going to stick him in the corner, he's not going to be maximized. You want him running these secondary reps when the ball gets swung over to the other side. You want him running that secondary pick and roll. You want to give him some DHOs going downhill, allow him to gather the defense and make a read. You want him making those decisions. If you're just going to stick him in the corner, and we saw that with Maccabi Tel Aviv in the EuroLeague, especially, like, sometimes he kind of just got pushed out to the corner, and those are the games where he kind of disappeared. And he's still a good cutter because he's a really smart basketball player, but if you really want to get your money's worth of him, I think you got to give him the on-ball reps. So that's just something to look forward to, and it's also a big concern of someone I'm going to talk about later in my lottery. But yeah, we can move on from him. I'll give you my good teams if you want.
Yeah, well, before I ask you which is your best fits, I do think that he'll be in a better situation to show off his full skill set in the NBA than he would in Maccabi. There he's going to have to fit around the players that they have. If a team takes him top 3, 4, 5, then I really believe that they're going to try to put him in the best position to succeed and show off his full skill set. So I think you may see more so of the point forward that we saw at the under 20s. But again, it goes to him going to the right fit. So I want to hear your list or your teams that you think would be the best fit for him.
So, I mean, it seems like Deni is a lock for, like, the top 5 just based on consensus and where he's been for the past
Except
4
on your
months.
list, you got him 6.
So I have him 6, yeah. Just from the GMs, from the people who made it. It seems so this would need some lottery luck, but I just can't stop thinking about the San Antonio fit. Like, just getting him into that program, and world renowned for shooting coach who basically made Kawhi Leonard into one of the most unstoppable basketball players on the planet. And just getting him in that system, like, he's gritty like that. He works hard. I don't even want to hear him being international and going to the Spurs. I know that's everyone's favorite thing to do. That has nothing to do with it. It's solely the shooting. And that the fact that if they can make him not only a catch and shoot shooter, but into, like, a viable pull-up threat, then he's going to be a really damn good NBA player. And just the thought of that is pretty crazy. And I think that's an easy, like, not easy way, but that's how he's going to reach his highest outcome. And San Antonio is the best place for him to do that. And I know, like, a more likely one that I like, I like Cleveland just because they've gone so guard heavy in the past couple of years, and with guards who play no defense, so you get a smart backline defender to kind of shore things up there. I like that, and that's probably more realistic. But man, if San Antonio could get some lottery luck and snag him, I'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, that would be a good choice. I am buying him as a pull-up shooter. I think we saw that at the under 20s. We saw him. He really likes that. I think that contributed to his percentage being so low because he was taking a lot of tough contested pull-up J's. Yep. But it's like Luka in a sense. I mean, it's a lazy comparison, but Luka shoots like 32, 33% from 3. And it's because he's taken so many tough contested shots. Now, I don't think Deni is on the same level as shooter as Luka, but I do think he can be a good volume shooter, like you mentioned in the last episode with LaMelo Ball and volume.
Yeah.
I think Deni can get to that point where he may not be a 40% shooter, but if he's taking a lot and he's a threat, I think it just kind of opens everything up for him.
For sure.
All right, number 7.
So number 7 is my guy Kyrie Lewis from Alabama.
Oh, you're like my brother. My brother's really high on Kyrie Lewis also.
So Kyrie Lewis, he's been a top 10 guy for me since December. Just we can start with the speed because that's really what generates everything. That dude is an absolute beast in transition, and with it's in the half court too. Like if you give him a step, he's blowing right by you. And
Right.
the strides he made as a finisher, I'll say he still has some finishing woes. Sometimes he'll take off a little too far from the rim. Doesn't have great vertical pop. Tends to get blocked a little more than I'd want. But his passing improvement from freshman to sophomore and from like sophomore throughout the entire season, he's whipping these live dribble passes all over the court. And it's just so lethal when you get someone like him who's blowing by their primary so easily and then can dissect the defense right off the live dribble. And that's just something that he just torched SEC defenses with all year. And what I love about him too is he can go on and off the ball. Like I'm a big fan of his shooting projection. He's a super sound catch and shoot shooter. He's great rhythm when he steps into it. One motion release. It's quick. It's fluid. It's reliable. He's smart moving off the ball. And the real game changer for him, honestly, is his pull-up three. Because if you then have to go guard him as a pull-up three shooter and you have to get your big man out on the perimeter, then that's when things are going to get ugly for the defense, because where he struggles is kind of like deception, and even on switches sometimes. Like he like ranks in the lower percentiles on isolation because sometimes he'll just like try to blow by you with like a hezzy or just speed, just straight up speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to see him expand more on his bag. Like I know he has it, but it's just so easy for him right now to blow by people. But in the league, if you're going to have a pull-up jumper and you're going to need bigs to come out and they can't drop on that screen, and you're going to need guards really going over the top of that and really staying attached, like that's going to be a problem. Another thing with him, like he's super, super young. I think he still might be 18. He reclassed up, like he didn't play his senior year at high school. He just went straight from as a junior to a freshman in college. Either he's 18 or he just turned 19, super, super young, younger than some freshmen in this class. So that's also good for his projection going forward. And I just love, like in this class, you can bank on the speed translating, and he's gotten better and better at a pretty quick rate. And he's learned that he can pick up on new things on the fly and get better throughout the course of a season, which was something I was really encouraged by. And then you just bank on him being allowed to take floaters, which is like the worst kept secret, that Nate Oates is all broom attempts and threes. And I get it. I'm a math guy too. I respect it. And I know what you're going for, but at some point, if you lack vertical pop around the rim and you're blowing by your primary defender on the 3-point line super easily, just take that floater and take that pull up. So I know he has that in his bag, and that's something I'm looking forward to him pulling out at the next level for sure.
Yeah, he's I think he's definitely, well, for the most part, I feel like he's been underrated. Now I'm starting to see his name rise up on different people's draft boards. But yeah, he's just finished his sophomore season, but I saw him last year at the under 19s, which featured guys that are still in high school on that team. I think it was a couple of guys. Well, Haliburton was on the team.
And I'll never forgive. Who was the coach of that? Why am I blanking? Oh my God. The coach who just refused to play Kyrie Lewis and gave Haliburton the keys to the entire offense. I'll never forgive that man.
Yeah. I mean,
I think it was Bruce Weber, but I'm looking at that.
I think so. And even then, like Jalen Green didn't start also. So he was coming off the bench. He played the kid, Isaac. I can't pronounce his last name.
Isaac likely got a lot of run. We'll say that.
Him a lot. Yep.
We'll say that.
So far, I guess the biggest shockers on your list are Cole Anthony at 5 and Lewis at number 7.
I'm fine with that. Those are two of my guys. I'll take it.
All right, number 8.
Oh, do you want me to give a fit real quick?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
Love.
Yep.
So for Kyra, the fit, I love New Orleans. And just I can't remember. I don't know if we talked about this or everything's kind of blended together. But when you have someone like Zion and Brandon Ingram, two dudes you can run your offense through, and two dudes that not necessarily primaries, but are going to have the ball in their hands a lot, you need to look for pieces that can kind of add to that and play on and off the ball. And Kyra Lewis, just picturing him and Lonzo running the break in transition with Zion, I mean, that's just absolutely frightening. But then when you get into the half court, like I said, he can space the floor, he can run pick and roll, he's still a very capable passer, and just like that fit that it would allow him to play on and off immediately and bring value in that role. And it's not like, we need you to play on ball more, and they're going to force him into something and overload him, or they already have a primary and he's strictly going to be off ball. Like, I think New Orleans is somewhere that can just play to his strengths, and especially his scalability of being able to play on and off and running in transition. So that's something I'm really hoping to see. So I'm hoping he can find his way there somehow.
And just his speed in the half court. I mean, you run into a solid Zion screen, and he's at the basket, and then he's a good enough passer to where when the defense collapses, he can find the open man. Is there another fit that you'd like to see, or is it just? I know that's your 1A because I believe we talked about it with Cole Anthony. I think any point guard in this class could be a good fit in New Orleans, especially if you like to score.
Yep.
Who would be another fit for you that you think would be good?
I like Orlando. I like Orlando too because they really lack offense. That's no secret to anybody. Yep. So you put him in Orlando, and that would just be a situation where he gets the keys, and I'm cool with that. I don't know. Like, he would probably have to get a little bit. Like, I think they're at like 15 right now. So maybe if he gets drafted at 15, he would have to have like some Donovan Mitchell type training camp and early season rise to like fully get the keys. But I think over time that could be a really good spot for him, like, because they really have no one else to create, to live and learn and try stuff out. Like we talked about with LaMelo, like getting into a situation where you get the keys. I think what's good for Kyra is that he can kind of like, there's a lot of fits that I like. These are kind of just the two that stand out. Like Orlando is kind of the prime fit where, okay, if you want to operate on the ball as much as possible and really become a true primary, which I don't know if he can become. I don't know if that's his like the best outcome for him, but hey, like give it a shot. And if not, you can always play off Markelle Fultz. Like they have other pieces for him. And the defense, like people think he's a lousy defender. I'm higher on his defense than most. By no means is he a defensive stopper, but when you go play with Jonathan Isaac, that's not really a problem. So I think allowing him to just go out there and rock out super young and just kind of make mistakes and learn on the fly, I think that's probably the best place for him to do it.
I agree. That's a pretty good fit. Number 8.
So number 8, I have Devin Vassell, and I love Devin Vassell. The only thing really preventing me from like putting him higher is that I don't know about his passing, like on the ball. It's not there completely yet. And he still relies on like, I think he's a really good shot maker. I don't think he's just this 3-and-D, like stand in the corner, shoot, catch, and shoot threes and be a great defender. Like the defense speaks for itself. We don't even need to waste time on that. He's the best team defender in the class. He was the best team defender in the country. And I don't really even think it's close, to be honest. But on offense, I don't think it's people can say Tyler Bay. Vassell is better in my opinion. And with the offense, you have someone who just has these pretty wicked like shot making flashes for a 6'7" wing who is super, super lanky and has a release like on the over his head, literally over his head. So it's pretty much unblockable. Like there's a picture, like one of my favorite pictures the entire year. It's literally like him shooting, and I think it was at Virginia Tech. One of their players was going to contest it. And it doesn't even matter. He's getting it off cleanly, even though the defender's like right here in his face. And so with that, you have him draining these like really tough 1 or 2 drill pull-ups. And I wrote about this when I talked about him like a couple months ago. He basically went from like I think it was like the 0th percentile his freshman year as a pull-up shooter to then like being a respectable tough shot maker. And you don't really see that type of improvement in like a 12-month span in any prospects. Like shooting off the bounce is one of the hardest things you can learn because it's so many moving parts. You have to have the right footwork, balance, and then the right touch to hit the shot. And the like where he showed aptitude in that aspect this year was pretty mind-blowing. So I'm on the higher end of like him having actual shot making ability and shot making potential. It's just if like I don't know if he's someone you necessarily want to run a pick and roll for, because like I don't know if the passing is completely there yet, but he's someone I'm definitely banking on to like draw closeouts because I think he's a very good catch and shoot shooter. And when he does draw the closeouts, someone who's capable of attacking off the bouncing and getting into a tough pull-up.
Yeah, I didn't have him as high as 8. It's interesting because there are some people who feel that he may not even be the best NBA prospect from Florida State. But that's why I like getting different perspectives. And I had mentioned before in the last episode is I like how your list is just based off of you. You're not following anybody else. It's just strictly your opinion and how you feel. And you're not afraid to stand on that hill and put it out there. So what do you think would be the best fit?
So my best fit for him, let me see. Oh, I didn't write this down. So for Vassell, I'm just gonna say it because I was on. The boys at Prep to Pro podcast,
Yep.
Max and Ben. Yeah, so they did a whole mock thing, and I was picking for Atlanta, and I was at 4, and I know a lot of people wouldn't touch Vassell at 4, but it doesn't really matter in my opinion where the numbers are. If the guy is a good prospect and you like him and you think he's a good fit, take him. Like rarely do we hear, oh, he's really good, but they took him too high. If he's good and he fits for you, go get him. And so for me, that's Atlanta, and Vassell fits perfect there. You already have your on-ball guy in Trae Young, who's using up most of the on-ball reps. And then with Vassell, if we're talking, if Vassell goes to Atlanta, then we're talking about a lot of young wings, and this is exactly what we talked about in part 1 in regards to Ant going there. And Vassell is probably more of like a true 3 just because he's a little bit longer. But then you have Vassell, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, and you can create lineups because all those guys are reliable floor spacers, assuming Cam Reddish is like the real Cam Reddish and not first month Cam Reddish. But so assuming Cam Reddish is the dude we know, then you have a lot of wings who are impactful on defense, can space the floor on offense, and can do a little bit on the ball. And that's really all you're looking for when you have someone like Trae Young. So every person Atlanta acquires, where it's the draft, free agency, like defense should be a huge priority for them because you have Trae Young, and there's no one better to fill that role than Devin Vassell.
All right. Name another fit that you think would be good for him.
So Vassell is awesome because he pretty much fits anywhere.
Plug and play.
Like you plug and play him anywhere. And I mean, the only place I don't even know if I'd like take him is because Phoenix, because like they have his long lost older brother and Mikal Bridges. So I mean, as a Knicks fan, like if the Knicks don't get LaMelo or Killian, like I have Vassell third on my Knicks board just because grab the guy who I think is going to be a positive NBA player. And he's going to shore up your defense. He's going to make shots. He's going to space the floor. And he'll make tough shots, and he'll put pressure on the defense as a rookie. Like I genuinely believe that he will generate closeouts. He's going to be a high-level catch-and-shoot shooter. And then his game kind of goes from there. Like you see with Mikal, that if all of a sudden like you can't shoot threes, then your offensive game kind of disappears. And that is a worry. Like it's not a worry, but it's a possibility with Vassell. Like if he's not a high level catch and shoot 3-point shooter and he's not generating closeouts to then attack for these pull-ups, then where's his offensive value getting derived from? I get that. And I haven't heard that argument a ton. I've heard it, but I buy Vassell as a very good shooter. He is a good sample size in 2 years, and he's been really efficient there. And the mechanics are sound, and he's comfortable and he's confident. So I'm buying him there, and I think he's going to be a really good two-way player. And I wish I could get a little bit higher with him, but I just like some other guys more.
All right. So we're at 8?
We're at 9.
9. Wow. Okay. We're moving a lot faster than the last episode.
Yeah.
All right. So
I had a little bit more to say on the top guys, but at 9, I have Tyrese Maxey, the Kentucky combo.
Okay.
Maxey was someone I was higher on in the early, like pre-college. I thought he was a better passer than he showed at Kentucky, but I mean, he was pretty atrocious there all year at Kentucky, just missing easy reads, throwing passes out of bounds, not making advanced reads, not capitalizing on his rim gravity. He was just pretty abysmal there overall as a passer. So at some point, like in pre-college, like as an AAU and high school player, you could have sold me that he was going to develop into a primary. I'm out on that. Like he's not a primary. However, that doesn't mean that he's still not a valuable secondary creator who can score on the ball, because I do buy him as a pull-up shooter, and I think he is really good at getting to the rim. He's super strong. He's a crafty finisher. He's a great floater. And so his on-ball value is kind of scoring, because I trust him to create his own shot. Even though he doesn't have a great handle, I trust him as a pull-up shooter. And then the off-ball, I'm lower on the catch and shoot projection than others just because there's something about it. I don't know what. It's a low release point. It's a low arc. He was bad all year there. He doesn't have a ton of experience playing off the ball, and teaching someone who has good touch to shoot a catch and shoot 3, like in theory, that should be one of the easier things, which is why I'm still even talking myself into having him 9. So I think on offense, you have this value as a secondary guard who can create a little bit for himself off the bounce, but is mainly like a scoring guard. And then on defense, he's a dog. Like I really, really like him on defense. I know the stock numbers were low, which isn't great. Like I would have liked him to have a higher steal percentage at least, but he's just really, really sound on and off the ball. He's super strong. I talked about offense. Like he has this like stocky combo guard build. He gets into your stuff if you at the point of attack. He's super pesky. He's great high energy, and then off the ball, he's alert. Like he's shooting passing lanes. He's digging in help, and he's just someone that, as even though his college season didn't go as planned, there's not that many guys that I'm willing to bet on. So taking into account the pre-college sample, like we talked about with Cole, combined with the things that he showed he can do at Kentucky, which is make pull up contested jumpers and finish at the rim at a high rate, despite not being like the greatest athlete in the world. I like those skill sets a lot, and so that's enough at number 9 for me.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. His fit at Kentucky was questionable. I don't think it was the best fit for him. I mean, it didn't necessarily hurt his draft stock, as it seems like a lot of people are taking account into what he did in the EYBL. But yeah, at Kentucky, he didn't really get a chance to show much as a passer. And I still can't figure out why the shooting percentages were so low. I mean, I've actually been in a gym. I've seen him shoot. I live in Dallas, and I'm from the area, so I've been around him and watched him work out privately a couple times, and he's a good shooter. He's a much better shooter, I believe, than what his numbers indicated. But for whatever reason, I just can't figure out why he has such a tough year shooting. But like you mentioned, it's a low release, and I think that maybe that could have been an issue. But I think he can offset that by shooting deeper. I mean, he's not Trae Young as a shooter, but Trae has kind of a low release. It's quicker, but Trae shoots from deep. And so you have to respect his range. And so you kind of play, it kind of works in his favor a little bit. I think Tyrese is an interesting fit, though, as far as like where do you play him at? In my opinion, I think he's going to have to develop into a 1. I think you get the best value out of him if you can play him at the 1. If he can't play a lot of 1 for you, then you're going to have to pair him with a Alonzo Ball type. There's not many of those around. And then I think he ends up being an off the bench type scorer. So we're all over the place as far as like me and different people about where we see Tyrese. If you could name a comparison, like what type of if you compare him to a player, who would you compare him to?
I'm so bad at comps. Like literally, I don't do them ever.
I usually try to stay away from him for the most part.
Yeah,
but I can't think of
I'll lay out
he plays like.
Like I'll lay out an the archetype for me that I'm buying into is someone who plays off the ball, is a good pull-up shooter, is a good finisher, and is a good guard defender. Like, and whether that's a starting 2 guard or a microwave change of pace guy off the bench, I don't know. That's to be determined. I can see either outcome, but that's kind of what I see him settling into.
So you would take a microwave change of pace guy in the top 10?
I think that's one of his lower outcomes, but I also think if we look back at this class 5 years down the line, I don't think it's far-fetched that a 6-man who makes an impact on both ends of the floor is a top 10 guy in the redraft, you know? So
I've heard
take it with both ways.
A friend of mine compared him. He said he thinks that his best case scenario is a Drew Holiday type. As far as like the defense, you can play him at the 1 or 2. Then I've seen like Lou Williams comparisons. I really don't know who to compare him to myself. But I do think that it could be boomer bust potential with him. I mean, he doesn't have the biggest boomer bust potential, in my opinion, of guys that I mean, this is kind of off the subject a little bit. Precious Achiuwa is my biggest boomer bust guy. So
yeah, I mean, that's also,
he could be really, really good, or he could be Thomas Robinson. But yeah, I just don't. It's just interesting to see like what his outcome is, because he's not like a pure 1. He's undersized 2. Then you can look at the numbers and say, well, he doesn't shoot it well enough to play off the ball. It's going to be very interesting to see how his rookie year goes in the year 2 and how he develops, because I've seen him fall down like really low in some drafts. Like I've seen one where he was like in the 20s.
I saw, yeah. I think that's crazy to me still. Like, you just look at someone who's that good of a finisher and and flashes that competence as a pull-up shooter with that frame and that defensive ability. Like, 20 is crazy to me, honestly.
Right.
I'll just say that.
So where would be your best fit for him?
I like him in Minnesota a lot. I think he can go on. I mean, I think he can start off the ball because they have D'Angelo Russell. And I think that's a place where his defense will actually become a value. And because D'Angelo Russell is not a very good defender, and neither is Karl-Anthony Towns. So to pair him with D'Lo in the backcourt in some lineups and kind of have Maxey take the better guard and let D'Lo get a rest, I like that a lot on both ends of the floor. I don't think it's going to put too much creation pressure on him immediately, which I don't really think is good for him. But I also like the floor spacing with Karl-Anthony Towns. I mean, it's probably the best shooting big in the league right now, maybe of all time.
Yeah.
I'm willing to hear he's the best shooting big of all time. I just didn't want to come out too hot, but I think it's true. So you have Karl-Anthony Towns spacing the key. You let Maxey attack off and get to the rim. He can pull out his floater. He can use these Euro steps. Like, I just think that's an ideal spot for him with D'Lo as a really poor defender on defense, and then on offense, Karl-Anthony Towns spacing the floor.
Okay. Do you have another fit in mind?
With Tyrese,
because if you have him 9, I don't even know if Minnesota can fall that far, can they?
Yeah. I mean, I like Sacramento too. Like, I like pairing him with Fox because I'm high on Fox long term. I think he's gotten, like, if you look at these discussions, like Ja, Trey, SGA, like, I think Fox belongs in those discussions to an extent. I know he regressed and I know he was injured, but if you remember these discussions a year ago, it was Fox over Trey. And, like, I know Trey took a huge leap and Fox got hurt, but I just don't want to become too reactionary over 1 year. I think Fox is still really, really good long term, and that would be a hell of a defensive backcourt. So that's definitely something I'm intrigued in for sure.
It'll definitely cause a log jam with all their guards. Depending on see what they'll do with Bogdan. All right, so we're at number 10.
10. Yeah, 10. So at 10, I have Obi Toppin. And I know it's low for a lot of people, but I have my reasons. And the reasons are basically all team building and defense related. It's where do you play him? If you play him at a 4, ideally you want to play him at the 5 because then you get – offensively, let's just start off offensively. He's an offensive monster. He does everything. Like, I think he's going to shoot it to what volume and what level of versatility, I don't know. But do I trust him hitting a pick and pop 3 to a pretty high degree? Yeah, I do. I trust him there. He's an incredible vertical athlete. Like, that doesn't even need to be said. You check SportsCenter, Bleacher Report, you can see all his dunks. I love the passing too. Like, he's a he's a really, really impressive passer. And when you combine like the roll gravity he's going to have at the rim with the passing, like on these short rolls, Dayton, I wish they ran him off more short rolls, but I clipped like a few of him. Like, there's a few plays of him like getting downhill in an advantage situation. It's not off a short roll, but it basically mimics like the situation that he would see off a short roll, and he pick teams apart. Like, there's like 3 or 4 clips across like a few games. He absolutely diced them apart. And what I wish he was like a little bit better. I wish he was better in the post. Like, I don't trust his post offense at all because his center of gravity is just so high. He can never like dig in and leverage defenders. And that goes for defense too. Like, I posted a picture, his back leg when he was defending Udoka Azubuike in the post is literally like staggered 3 feet back because that's the only way he can like hold his ground with, and that's just not viable. So I don't trust his post offense, which kind of sucks because he's an incredible post passer. Like, he'll turn, just peek and throw like a one-handed whip pass to the corner. On offense, he's awesome. I have no doubts about that. The defense is where the concerns lie. Like, if you could sub offense defense like football, I would take Obi Toppin number 2 and like not think twice about it, but you can't. And you have to play defense. And so the problem is, okay, do you play him at the 5 because that's where you get the most out of him on offense? Well, if you want to play him at the 5, I don't think that's really viable because he's 6'9" with super long load time, and he can't play pick and roll defense. Like, he can't drop. He's so flat-footed when he's dropping. He can't, like, if he's dropping and the guard switches directions, it's over. Like, he can't, his hips are just way too stiff. He can't open up. He can't change direction. So, like, you don't really want him in primary pick and roll coverage ever, but then you also don't want him guarding 4s on the perimeter because he can't really move on the perimeter. Like, what I'll give him credit is he's good at like getting his hand in the passing lane and then like jumping it for like a transition dunk for like a pick six. But that's really, what is that good for, like one bucket every game, maybe every 2 games? Like that's not viable to like be a good defender night in, night out. So I really just have concerns with him on the defensive end. And as a big man to be that bad at defense, and like I think he can be really, really, like I think he could be an atrocious defender. And I just think that presents so many team building problems that I don't know if the offense is worth it. Like if you told me Obi's going to be a neutral defender, like I would say he's a lock to be a top 3 player in the class because I buy the offense that much.
Yeah, I talked about it with the podcast I did recently with the guy that runs the Mavs Drafts Twitter account, and I mentioned that I've never seen such a wide gap as far as like athleticism and mobility. Yeah. Like
it makes no sense.
He jumps to the moon. It makes
no sense.
But laterally, he is just so stiff, and I think it's going to be a problem. Like I think teams are literally going to attack him on every 100%. Possession.
100%.
You know what? I mean, this is probably a bad take. Remember when Houston was playing Ryan Anderson and versus Golden State, and they literally just ran him off the floor because he couldn't move?
Look, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that Obi gets run off the floor. And like, yes, are people going to do that in the regular season every night? Maybe not. But like, if he plays a heavy pick and roll team, maybe. And in the playoffs, definitely in the playoffs. So, and then it just comes back to the team building conversation. What do you want? Do you want to be a regular season team that can win 50 games, sell tickets, and get in the playoffs? Or do you want to win a championship? I think the goal is to win a championship. And that's really all it's about. So if I can't picture winning a championship with Obi Toppin as one of my best players, then why would I invest a top 3 pick into him? And that's just kind of where I'm at. I think I'm not going to like go crazy when he gets picked in the top 5 because it's going to happen. And the offense is there. I get it. I just think people are overlooking some of the defensive issues. But like, look, I have him top 10 because the offense is super bankable and there's not really anyone else. I don't think he's this transcendent star, but he is going to be a really, really good offensive big man. And that counts for something.
Yep. So what do you think is your best case scenario for him?
So my best fit.
This is tough. Based off of everything you said, the team building, now you gotta put him on the team with some defenders. Man, that was bad. That's in the lottery.
So the lottery is real tough because you don't really because Atlanta doesn't make a ton of sense because they have Collins. So that really doesn't make much sense. And then no one else really has the defensive anchor. Like, and this is why I see like it's not he'll probably win rookie of the year because he's gonna put up 20 on insane efficiency.
Yep.
But if you look at the teams that he's probably going to go to, and this is the same thing for Tyrese Haliburton, there's not a lot of good fits at all.
I think Tyrese I think there's a lot of fits for Tyrese.
We're going to talk about Tyrese.
We'll get into that, yeah. So my pick would be Phoenix, just because, you know, if I'm Phoenix, like you said, are you trying to win a championship or are you trying to sell tickets to get to the playoffs? Well, I think you have to crawl before you walk. And if I'm Phoenix, I haven't been to the playoffs since, I don't even know, like, is it like 8 years, maybe something like that? It's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
So I think you add him, it reminds people of a young Amari. As far as just like the highlights. Like well, as my brother would say, he moves like Knicks Amari.
So. I was going to say he moves like Maccabi Tel Aviv Amari because he's fresh in my head.
Yeah. And I was in China this season. Amari was in China for a little while too. And yeah, he's definitely not the same player, but I mean, he's close to 40. But yeah, I think if I'm Phoenix, that's the player I take. And I'm just going to try to be exciting, outrun teams. And I have a good trio of Booker, Ayton, and Toppin. And yeah, just hope you can outscore teams. And then once you get there, then you try to like see if you can build something for a championship. I mean, listen, you got to get to the playoffs first.
I'm going to pick Portland for the same reason. It's kind of just like, look, we're right there. Just try to get the piece who can maybe move the needle, and we can become that lethal offensively. Like I don't think it's going to happen because, again, they need some super lottery luck. But imagining Dame and like the range that defenses have to. He was getting doubled 30 feet from the basket. So
Yeah.
imagining Obi Toppin operating in that space as a roll man is just pretty exciting. And then I don't know, the defense, it's kind of just going to be like whoever drafts him. Your mindset has to be, we're taking him for what he is, and we'll figure out the defense later. Because no team in the lottery really has the defensive prowess that you need to plug Obi in and be successful. Because if they did, they wouldn't be in the lottery. So
Right.
that's kind of where you're getting at with him.
So I'm a Blazers fan, and I never thought of it until recently. I don't know if it was my brother or the podcast with the Mavs draft where I thought about like, oh, you know what? He actually probably would be a good fit in Portland. And if he falls because of his defense and Portland doesn't make the playoffs, I think there is a chance that he could possibly be available. One of the things that the Blazers have lacked for the past few seasons is a four-man that can make a play. And so, I mean, you look at this series with New Orleans, they doubled Dame, and then they passed it to Aminu or Harkless. And, I mean, defensively, they were good because they could switch out and defend multiple positions. They were interchangeable at the 3 and the 4. They were respectable three-point shooters, but they couldn't put the ball on the floor or make a play. This is where Toppin's passing would come in and help. Obviously, Portland doesn't really have – I mean, I guess with Whiteside this year, but I don't expect him to be on the team next year. But a vertical lob threat, I mean, there's nobody on the roster that's even close to matching him athletically. And then, you know, I do believe that he could be a respectable three-point shooter. So I would like him in Portland in a sense. I think that Nurk is a solid, he's a solid defender. I think Collins is going to be a good defender. So you pair him with one of those two. I don't know which. I guess you have to bring Collins off the bench going into his contract year. So that could cause some issues. But, yeah, I wouldn't mind that fit. And then I'm trying to think what other teams could possibly be a good fit. You know, if I'm New York and – you know, it's kind of like Phoenix in a sense. It may not be the best fit long term.
As a Knicks fan, it's a hard no for me. It really is. It's a hard no, like a hard no.
But I think they have to get to the playoffs. Like they have to. And then
I just think he doesn't do it for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll be tough. But I think like he'd bring excitement. Because I feel like if you're the Knicks and if you miss out on – you know, LaMelo, like you fall to like 8 or 9 and he's available. I think he's someone, I mean, even though they don't necessarily need to sell tickets, I mean, they could have me and you in the starting 5 in the Garden with sell out. But I think he could bring some type of excitement to that crowd. And then you could, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like with Knicks fans, they're so hard to please. In a sense, like if you take a guy like Vassell, they're gonna boo because they probably didn't watch him enough, and he's a very good complementary role player, but they just want the home run.
Yeah. Well, to all the Knicks fans, if you boo Devin Vassell, I would ask you where all our home run picks got us now. So we'll leave it at that.
It makes a lot of sense. All right, so who do you have at number 11?
So 11, I have Aleksej Pokusevski. I think I did that right. But
AP.
We'll call him Poku. I don't know. That's easier. So with Poku, and I the first time I watched him, it was like honestly one of the most mesmerizing games I've ever seen from a prospect.
The triple-double game?
Yeah, I don't know. It was in FIBA.
Yeah, it had to have been a triple-double game. I was there. I was at that game.
Really? You were live for that? Like in that tiny gym?
Yep, I was there.
Oh, my God.
Summer.
It was it Germany again? I don't know who it was. It was a game where he had a ton of steals.
Blocks. Yeah, I was there.
Yep. Block, steals, step back, sidestep threes. And I was like, oh, my God, this guy is incredible. I've literally never seen anything like him. Immediately moved him to my top 10. And then I watched more, and I was like, okay.
He disappeared.
These are more flash skills. He disappears throughout some games. And then I kind of went from like the high point to the low point and then did some internal debating, watched some more film, and like finally got to like a middle ground. And it's like, look, initially I was thinking about him as this like unicorn 5, right? Who's going to like run all over the court, take pull-up threes, be a stock monster, and then like be a boomer bust, honestly. And like that's what I was thinking. As I've thought about it more, his mobility is one of the more bankable skills. Like if we're just talking prospects, I know he's a ton of weight to put on, and you never know how that affects prospects in lateral quickness or just straight line speed, whatever. As a 6'11", 7-footer, and how smart and reactionary he is as a team defender, the fact that he has like the hip fluidity to like slide with the ball handler, open up, and then chase him down for a block, like I just have this vivid play in my head. Is pretty nuts. So on defense, and then I started thinking about him as a 4, and like, okay, at the very least, this dude's gonna be like a unique, versatile 4 because he can guard on the perimeter, and then he won't have to deal with like the bruising of the big 5s every single night. Because I think he can hold up on the perimeter against wings because he's super athletic. So with Poku, you're getting this like, I don't even know how to describe his offense.
A creative player. He's like that guy that you create.
Player. I mean, 7 feet tall, 190. Shot mechanics, he's not, the percentages aren't necessarily there, and neither are the mechanics. Like he does
flat shot.
Like it looks like he shoots the ball a different time. Like he's like 3 different forms, and like you never know which one you're gonna get. You know, is he gonna follow through? Is he gonna flick
quick
it and
trigger
bring
it?
his
Like,
wrist back? Yeah, he's a bunch of different, and like he's a bunch of different follow throughs, which is never good. But he has pretty insane like shot versatility and shot volume, and that's something I really like as projecting him as a shooter going forward. Like as a 7-footer, to be comfortable taking these shots, coming off a dead sprint, running into the corner with no space, to turn, square your body up and get that shot, even to the rim. Like we'll just start there, is impressive in its own right. So with him, you're just getting, and we're talking about swings. This is the swing to me. Like if he can put on weight, and it's going to take 2-3 years, like you're not going to get this immediate return. You're not going to get this immediate satisfaction. But if you develop him properly, physically and skill wise, you have the chance to get a pretty, I'm not going to say transcendent, but dynamic and unique player. And that's how you win.
So here's my story. So I lived in Turkey for a season, and so that's when I became friends with Bogdanovic. Okay. So I text Bogdan, and I think we were talking about, so last time I went to the under 18s and under 19s, and then I went to summer league between that, and I'm getting them mixed up. So I remember texting Bogdan, and I must have asked him where was he at, and he told me, so I had just missed him somewhere. We were in the same place at the same time. So then I said, yeah, I'm on my way to go watch this tournament. And I said, I'm about to check out Serbia. So he laughed. He says, well, let me know if you find any prospects. See if you can find the next Bogdanovic. You know, he was joking. We were being silly. So I go to the game, and I don't know who he is. You know, it's Serbia versus, I can't think of who it was. And then that's when he had like the big game. So now the rest of that tournament, Serbia is number 1 on my list, and I'm trying to go to every single game. And the part that I hated about the way that setup is they had the games in 2 gyms, and they were like 30 minutes apart up like this crazy mountain.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it was terrible. And when I say it was a crazy mountain, like you literally had to wind around for like at least 20 minutes of the 30-minute trip up this mountain.
Oh my God.
And so luckily I wasn't driving. And then the gyms had no AC. They were hot. And then if Greece played, they were all sold out. So it was tough to like try to watch as many games as possible because the gyms were so far apart. And then if the Greek game was at the last game and then Serbia played the game before, then you had to literally get there. So anyway, long story short, me and a scout for the Mavs, we ended up basically just trying to watch every Serbia game. And it was just downhill after that first game. I mean, they say that he was hurt. There were times where he just didn't play hard at all. There were games where he had absolutely no impact. I know for sure they played Germany a second time, if I'm not mistaken. and I shouldn't say, I'm not for sure, they're not mistaken. I think they played Germany a second time, and he didn't do anything in the first half, and then he sat out the second half, and it wasn't like he had ice on his knee or anything like that. It just seemed like he packed it in. But after saying all that, I still would take a gamble on him because he is a natural. I don't even know what position he is. He's a natural at what he does. Like when he gets the rebound and he's pushing the ball up court, he is 100% comfortable with the ball in his hands. He's comfortable as a passer, whether it's in the low post, the high post. He's comfortable running pick and rolls. Like you said, the shot isn't necessarily there, but I mean, it's not broken. And there's definitely upside and potential for him to be a good shooter. I mean, even in the post, he's not going to post up often, but he does have the touch if he does have a mismatch. And then defensively, he just has good instincts and reactionary time. I mean, like I said, that first game, he was blocking shots. He was getting steals. He was playing the pass lanes. He was all over the place. So one of my questions is this motor consistent? Because the motor he showed that game, if he played like that consistently, like if he had a Precious Achua motor, he's a top 5 pick.
Oh no, and I don't disagree with you, and it's something I've seen because it's like the impact he was making in that first game that we're both talking about. I don't even know who it was. I don't want to misspeak, but like he must have had like 8 or 9 stocks in that game, and that's all consistent. Like it's not like, okay, yeah, you're a nuclear shooter and we're expecting you to make Dame type step backs every single game. No, if you're 6'11" with his wingspan and he's that quick and you actually like show up and like care about the game every single game, you're going to get steals. You're going to get blocks. So there's really no explanation for him just like not having a defensive impact on a game other than he didn't care and he didn't have a motor.
Right.
Like, and there's little clips. Like I haven't watched those FIBA games in a couple months, but like I just know like he'll like do a lousy reach on a press or like not hustle back. And like, I try not to let like one play cloud the overall thing, but when it's a recurring theme, you have to, it counts for something. And someone said, I don't forget who I was talking to, just like with each question mark, like you got to bump them down something. And the motor is a question mark for me. I don't care. I mean, if other people say otherwise, whatever, I've seen it. Like, and you see it too. There's certain games where it just doesn't look like the same dude, you know?
Right. So here's my big question about him. Does he really love basketball? Because with his skill set, it seems like it's just all natural gifts. You know what I'm saying? Like it seems like I'm not saying that he hasn't worked on his game, but everything that he has, you can't teach. From his instincts to, his fluidity to all of that. It seems like it's just really natural and it's come easy to him. And I wonder, based off of like how he plays and sometimes how the motor just lags, has he been able to just get away with being so good because he's so much more talented and naturally gifted than others? So I wonder, how does he compete when you put him in, whether you stash him in a G League or whatever, how does he compete when has a bunch of hungry dogs around him, when guys are fighting for their careers? Because he's not physical. He doesn't really want that type of action. And so I think that if you draft him high, let's say you draft him where you have him at number 11, he becomes a target. Everybody's going to be looking to try to kind of make a name. So I'm just curious as to how he reacts to that type of pressure. And only time will tell. But I do have some questions or concerns about how hard is he going to play, how consistent he's going to play hard, and how much he loves the game. I mean, it may be unfair to talk about this now with such a small sample size, but I left that tournament last year thinking that he was the most talented player there, but the player who made a consistent impact throughout that tournament all the way through he's not eligible to next year's draft, but Garuba from Spain.
I mean, listen, you can have me back to talk Garuba next.
We'll do it soon.
We'll put it that way. But listen, with Poku, like those are all qualitative questions that are completely fair and will ultimately play an impact in his development. And this is just where I kind of toss my hands up and wish I had sources and wish I had intel and wish I could watch pre-draft workouts, because that's the only way to tell. I'm like, I have no way of answering those questions, but it sucks because they're real. And like that can, I don't like, I like making my evaluations based off what I see on the court. Like, I think sometimes guys like Scotty Lewis and like Isaiah Stewart come to mind. Like, I'm lower on them as prospects, but I love them as people. Two of the best interviews I've ever done in my life. So well spoken, so energetic, great smiles, whatever. And you just tend to root for those guys a little bit more. And I try not to let that cloud my evaluation. But when we're talking the other way around, and it's like, do they really love the game? That's when that stuff kind of scares me. Because if you get to the league and you don't really love it, then you got some problems.
Right. And I mean, it may be unfair for me to, like I said, mention that so early. But like I said, he just had games where you're like, whoa. And then there's games where you're like, and he just didn't make any impact. So what would be your best fit for him?
My best fit for him. Like, I mean,
mine was Boston. I didn't have him that high at 11.
Yeah.
I thought at like 17, Boston, they don't have to play him. They stash him. I think even Dallas is at 18. I don't know if he slides that far. I think they would be they can swing for the fences. He's like the ultimate home run. And I mean, if he works out, then you got like a crazy, like a weapon that you can compare.
I mean, yeah, a team like Milwaukee too, Denver, just teams that have that depth and have the time and have the resources to stash him and monitor him. And it's not like the reason why I don't think he's going to end up going as high as he probably should is because it just looks bad on a GM if you whiff. Like, you just have to take those optics into account. And a lot of these GMs picking in the top half of the draft, they might not have great job security, and that stuff matters. So I think he'll probably slide into one of those teams, which is better for him and them, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes to Dallas, he'll play with the Texas Legends for a while. And I mean, just the proximity, like I live in Dallas, it's literally 30 minutes from Frisco to downtown Dallas, so he could be able to bounce back and forth. I mean, Boston doesn't need him to do anything right away. They can put him in Maine and develop him. I mean, Denver just seems to do a really good job of developing guys anyway. So I think Denver's like in the 20s, I believe.
Yeah, they have one at 21. They have Houston's pick at 21.
Yep. So, yeah. So, is there a team that you think, another team?
Not really, honestly. Just kind of those like playoff teams that are kind of cemented and have their core and have their depth. Like, I just don't want anyone expecting anything from him immediately, because as much as I love the guy, he's just not there physically.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think even if you're Charlotte, I mean, if I'm Michael Jordan, I got to swing for the fences, you know, just because they've missed out on quite a few guys. And, I mean, they have a decent young core right now, some pieces they can build around. But I think they need someone that, I mean, they just got to go for the home run. And I think that he would be somebody, I don't know much about their development program as of late. I mean, other than Devontae Graham, I guess that's a major development thing. But if I'm Charlotte, depending on where they pick it, if they slide to the back end of the lottery, he would be someone I consider.
For sure.
All right, so we're on 12 now.
12. Yeah, 12. So speaking of someone who kind of has the opposite motor of Poku, Isaac Okoro, the wing from Auburn. And Okoro was someone who he had a lot of hype from people on Twitter going into the year, like top 5 and all that. I never really got there with him because, like, basically with him, he has one flaw. Like, if you're just doing it, like, if we're going skill by skill, he has one flaw. Like, he's a really good finisher. He's a capable passer. He's incredible defensively on and off the ball. He has a great build. He's strong as a bull. He's a good athlete, can play above the rim. And he is just a questionable shooter. And people that bug me are just like, oh, he can do everything but shoot. But, like, you don't realize that, like, if you can't shoot on the basketball court and defenses don't respect you to even close out on you, everything else you do gets so marginalized. So, like, if he's a great passer, don't get me wrong, but he's not creating off the bounce. He's not creating an advantage off the bounce. He needs to attack a closeout. And the only way he's attacking closeout if he's a respectable shooter from 3. So if he knocks down catch and shoot threes at an efficient clip, he's going to be one of the top 10 guys in this draft. Like, probably even top 6 or 7. But I don't know. I'm not 100% there with the shot. Literally everything else is there. He's a really impressive passer. I mean, strong around the rim. He'll rise up and punch it on you, but he's also he can get to the free throw line on defense. He's just an absolute monster. He can probably guard 2 through 4 pretty effectively. Ones, I think you're probably stretching it, but 2 through 4, I'm pretty confident with him there and doing it to a high level. And he's just a winner. Like, he's always
Makes
been
an
a winner,
impact.
and he just makes impact plays.
Mm-hmm.
For him, like, I trust him to be a positive NBA player. It's just to how much, like, to what degree is he going to be not a negative on offense if the shot doesn't come around? And that's kind of what's holding me back to have him at 12 rather than like higher up in the lottery. I still think he's a good prospect. I would sleep well if I picked him, because you're not going to look horrible. Like, he's going to be good, and he's going to make an impact for your team, likely from day one, because he's physically ready to step into the NBA right now. It all depends on the shot, but if he's shooting catch and shoot jumpers and everything else locks up, like everything else opens up, he's going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah, and the thing with him is that there's just so many plays I saw this year where he had absolutely no confidence in his shot. Like, there's a play I'm thinking of. They swung the ball. The nearest man had 2 feet in the paint, and he caught it, and he like instead of taking the wide open shot, he drove into the man that was coming out to get him, and the guy just kind of stopped. And then there's times where he'd have an open look, and he'd swing it to somebody, and they'd have to take a contested shot. And in today's NBA, scoring is so important. I mean, the days of having like the Tony Allens and the Andre Robersons, where they can play a major role on a playoff team and provide absolutely no offense, those days are gone. Like, you have to have some type of positive impact on the offensive end of the floor. And to him, that's the most important thing. Obviously, it's the most glaring weakness. And I think it's like 1.5, because first of all, you have to have the confidence first. And then once you get the confidence to shoot it, then you have to knock the shot down. And there was too many instances where I saw where he didn't even have the confidence to shoot.
Yep. And that's a big problem for me with like someone like Josh Green too. Like, I know the percentages aren't horrible, but if you're not having if you don't have confidence to stroke it every single night, I know guys go through cold stretches, but I need to see you, like, the only way you can shoot through it, the only way to come out of cold slump is to shoot through it. And if you don't have the confidence to fight through those bad nights, and look, I don't want to sound like I'm being so harsh on them. They're still freshmen. Both of those guys could turn into competent shooters, and I could look like an idiot. It happens all the time. But in terms of my shooting projection, something I value is volume and confidence. And Okoro just lacked that a little too many times, and it showed in SEC play. Teams were scheming to go off him, and they just weren't closing out. And like I said, that minimized every other aspect. He wasn't getting to the free throw line as much. He wasn't getting to the rim as much. He wasn't making as many creative flash passes because those windows weren't opening up because teams were sagging off him. And yes, on paper, does he only have one flaw? But that flaw can be detrimental in today's NBA, and I just don't want to be naive and look over that.
Yep. So what would be a good situation for him? Like, I think Atlanta would be a good situation, and the reasons why is everything that you mentioned with Devin Vassell.
Yeah.
As far as on the defense,
I like. Yeah, so I like Atlanta. I like San Antonio for all the reasons that I talked about for Deni. They need wings, and he kind of fits that like hard-nosed San Antonio way. Again, getting him to a really positive shooting coach, like, I think that could be awesome. Just teams like Phoenix, who already have scorers, and you just throw him on as another defensive-minded wing to kind of help clean things up. I think he fits well there too.
He's they need a winner. They need like an impact guy that just is going to have the intangibles and is going to want to win games. So yeah, I think that's a good fit also.
I mean, look, you can never have too many wings. That's just a fact. And the NBA is low on wings, so anyone who has winning aspirations, I think Isaac Okoro fits there. Whether he reaches the impact level that he can get to, that remains to be seen. But in terms of fit, I think he's a pretty easy fit to kind of project out.
All right. We're down to the last two. 13.
So 13, I have the other Florida State prospect, Patrick Williams. it took me a while to kind of come around on Patrick Williams.
Me too. And I saw
because
him last summer live for a whole week. And a friend of mine was like, man, he's going to be a one and done first round pick. And I'm just looking like, I just don't see it. And that's
I
just
didn't
like,
see it. Oh, I didn't see it at all. I watched him at Peach Jam. I watched like 2 of his games at Peach Jam on Flow Hoops. And I was like, okay. Like, he's big and he can shoot. Like, what else are we doing here? And it kind of took a while because he only played like 20 minutes a game. He wasn't getting a ton of bump. He wasn't getting a ton of reps. And you're betting on flashes. And it takes me a while to feel comfortable betting on flashes. And the more you see them, the more comfortable you get. So he's someone I kind of came around later on in the process. But as a 4, and I'm big on 4s, like I think perimeter guys and wings get a lot of love, and rightfully so, but the value of a 4 who can connect your offense and defense, like on the perimeter, and has some playmaking chops, and then also can be a secondary rim protector and help out the big when he gets caught up in pick and roll and all those other actions. I think that's really, really valuable, and that's kind of where I see Patrick Williams. And it's interesting because like he's super young and you can see it on the court. Like he still makes some boneheaded passes. He still gets a little over aggressive with these whip passes, but like he's ambitious as a playmaker and he's ambitious as a pull-up shooter. And those are 2 things that I really, really like about his offensive projection. The catch and shoot mechanics, like it's weird because his pull-up is super fluid, but with the catch and shoot stuff, it's like slow and it looks a little delayed. I don't know how good of a catch and shoot shooter he really is, and that's why I can't get super, super high on him. But if he's draining catch and shoot threes, like then that kind of opens up everything else for him. Like we talked about with Okoro, it allows you to be a passer and all that. But why I'm more confident in like his offense compared to Okoro's is I think he's a legit pull-up shooter. Like I think he's a legit pull-up threat, and he showed that time and time again throughout Florida State. And even if you had to watch multiple games to see it because he's only taking 1 or 2 a game, you just got to cherish that and realize that that's what he did in 20 minutes of playing time. And then the defense is pretty awesome too. Like I said, really impressive weak side rim protector. I think he had a really impressive block percentage. I don't know what it was off the top of my head, but like you can see it on the film too. He's always rotating. He's super strong. He can hold his own against bigger wings and bigger 4s. There's like a big like I don't know if you know Polarfall on Twitter.
Who's this?
Polarfall at Polarfall.
Nope.
He's like, you got to follow him. He's like a biomechanics genius, and he kind of lays everything out in terms that I don't really understand, and I have to look a few things up. But then once I figure out what everything means, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And what he talked about with Pat Will is that he basically has like a huge muscle imbalance. Like he is huge quads, but like his lower legs aren't very strong, which is why he moves like really, really stiff on the perimeter. And that's the biggest concern is like, if he's going to be your true 4, because he's not a small ball 5, I think that's getting really carried away. He's a 4. And if you're going to be a 4, you're going to have to operate on the perimeter. And he's just really, really stiff. Like moving laterally, he's not horrible. But when you have to open up and really change directions, that's when things start to get ugly. So that's something that whoever drafts him, I hope they really recognize that as the root, like his main issue, because I really think it is. Like if you turn him into a versatile defender inside and outside the arc and then build on the offense, like with his age and future, I think you have a pretty solid prospect.
What do you think is a good fit for him?
A good fit for him, I like Phoenix a lot, actually, as a 4 to go alongside Ayton, kind of help him out as he's kind of learning that defensive curve. And also just someone like D-Book who's going to generate a ton of gravity. When D-Book gets going, 2 and 3 defenders come to him like it's nothing. And so for him to whip that out and then the defense is already bent, Pat Will can kind of attack, either shoot the 3, attack off that, and just work off a defense that's already shifted. And D-Book is one of the best guys at doing that off the bounce. So that's a fit I really like on both ends. And again, they're trying to make the playoffs, but they're not going to be in contention anytime soon. So you have a couple of years to kind of work him into the rotation, work out his flaws and get him into the best NBA player that he can be.
All right. So now we're down to the last lottery pick. And there's a couple guys that haven't been mentioned yet. So I'm trying to figure out in my head, all right, which guy is going to be left off your lottery list. So who is number 14?
So number 14 right now, I have my number 14, and then I have a 15 that might surprise some people that I want to just give a quick little shout out to.
Okay.
So the guy that you're probably wanting to hear is not James Wiseman. I like Wiseman, and actually, like, I need to do some stuff in this 14 through 16 because I have a guy I really like, but it's all situation dependent, and we're going to talk about him. But with Wiseman, like, he's a run and jump athlete, and I'm just not sold on the lateral quickness, which is why I can't really get there with him. And the offensive awareness is pretty brutal, combined with like the lack of film and lack of sample. It's just tough for me to buy, especially with him as a center. And the lack of feel, the high school tape was pretty bad. So he didn't make my lottery. At 14, I have Tyrese Haliburton. And I know that's super low compared to others. I know I've seen people with him top 5, top 3, whatever. But I wrote about him in like the last piece I did to have multiple prospects. And basically I talked about how team dependent he is. Like Haliburton, if I did a post-draft board and Haliburton goes to like, I don't even know how, but like, oh, if Haliburton went to New Orleans or if Haliburton went to Atlanta, like I would like him there a lot. But if Detroit takes Haliburton or the Knicks take Haliburton, then I probably would drop him out of the lottery because with Haliburton, he's not a lead guard by any means in my eyes. He's 6'5", super skinny, really, really poor handle and gets bumped off his spot a lot. Like and with no pull up, like he just doesn't have any lead guard qualities at the NBA level. What I do like him as is he's a really good spot up shooter. He doesn't have a ton of versatility because of those mechanics, but he shot 50% on spot up no dribble jumpers. Like that's reliable, and he has NBA range there. So I like him as this linking piece, like the Lonzo Ball type. But then Lonzo didn't really start getting productive until he started shooting the 3 ball well and started strapping up when he got really a lot stronger. So with Haliburton, for him to be like the defensive impact that I think others see him as, I think he needs to put on weight because right now he's just way too skinny. And I know he's a genius, like an absolute genius. He reads things 2 steps, like he's 2 plays ahead. Other people are 1 play, he's 2 plays ahead. And he's an absolute genius. I love watching him play, but at some point you got to separate what you like and your actual evaluation. And with him, I just don't see like him as an offensive star. Like other people see him as this like really high field lead guard, and I just don't see that at all. Like to me, he's a ball mover and a spot up shooter, which is cool and valuable to some teams, but is that really worthy of a top 5 pick? I don't think so. So
in
with
2017, it was worthy as the number 2 pick.
Yeah, but I mean, and I think people have learned a lot with that. In all seriousness, like with Lonzo Ball, I think now we would raise a lot of concerns in hindsight. He couldn't pull up off his right hand. How would that affect everything? Like he only shot side steps to his left. How is that going to translate in the NBA? And Lonzo was quicker and had better like burst than Hallie. Like Hallie literally has no path to being an advantage creator on the ball in the NBA without a pick and roll. So I can't get there with him super high. However, I recognize that he's a super smart basketball player and can be a really important linking piece as a shooter and team ball mover and team defender. So that's enough to stick him in the lottery, but I just can't get as high as others.
So I think Chicago would be a good fit for him.
I like him there too.
Because he can play with Levine and White. I don't like those 2 on the court together. Because they're similar in a sense of just shot first. I think Cleveland could be a decent fit for Haliburton also because he would bring some size to the backcourt. He would be a passer, which those other 2 guys actually 3. I mean, if you throw in Kevin Porter Jr., I think they need some type of balance. I think that he could be a good fit there. And here's the fit that, I mean, if I'm Golden State and I trade down, I think he would be a good fit there because he would come off the bench and he would play like the Sean Livingston role, just not taking mid-range jumpers. He'd be another ball mover. And I mean, like you talked about how intelligent he is. So you put him and Draymond on the court. I mean, you have 2 like really, really smart guys that move the ball, that make the extra pass. And if you give the Warriors another ball mover and make the extra pass and that can knock down the open shot, I mean, I think they can be super dangerous. And so I think he would be a good fit there. But of course, Golden State would have to trade down. And I think if they trade down, which means they're going to get someone else, another weapon, another bench player, and then you add him, I think that's like a great offseason. So if I'm Golden State, if I don't get Okongwu, then I'm looking to move down, and I'm looking to get just another piece, because they don't really need they just need another guy that's going to come in and fit their system. Another fit that I think those are the main three. It's just the teams that have too many ball dominant guards in the backcourt. I think he provides balance there. And then, like I say, with Golden State as another ball mover and floor spacer.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking offensively in Golden State, he fits like a glove. Like, just that unselfish mentality. He's is really good as an anticipatory passer. Like, if we're talking about all those like clips where Steph is running around the ball screen and you can tell that the two guys are going to go through with them, like where Draymond's made a living just slipping that pass into the roller before anyone can ever see what's going on. Like, Hallie would fit right in there. And I trust that he's going to knock down threes. I worry about him playing playoff defense next year because I think he could get hunted off the floor. Like college, Sam Vecini has talked about this, and he's obviously has access to talking to Big 12 coaches that I don't have. But he talked about how Big 12 coaches targeted him for two reasons. One, he's not as good on the ball and he's super frail. And two, it takes away his like off-ball prowess. And so I think that's something that really could happen if he was thrusted into playoff basketball next year and playoff basketball in the future, unless he seriously puts on weight. But offensively, that'd be really fun.
Yep. All right. So I noticed on your list, so it doesn't have James Wiseman. It doesn't have RJ Hampton. And these are guys that are normally, and well, I shouldn't say normally, but in quite a few lotteries. And I would say the big risers are Lewis, and obviously Vassell was a big riser, and Cole Anthony. So who is this number 15 for you that you mentioned?
So number 15/16, depending upon what I do with him and Wiseman, is Leandro Bolmaro from Argentina and FC
He was in
Barcelona.
that same tournament I saw last year.
Yeah. So he was. And what's interesting is with Argentina, if you watch those games, Argentina, I don't think you'll be blown away because he was
played
playing
better in the ACB than he did in the FIBA under-19s. Makes no sense to me.
This is exactly why we're going to talk about it. So it didn't make sense to me either until I really thought about it. And I was like, okay, because I watched him in the B division and he was killing, like toying with dudes. And I watched him in FIBA and I'm like, damn, was he really just like, and I was like hurt because I love this dude. Like he's awesome. He's super fun, crazy handle, like 6'6", 6'7", like crazy passer. I bought the shooting improvement that's run on FIBA and I was like, this is the same dude I just saw like cook everyone. And then I watched a couple more games and I was like, he's getting no on-ball reps. And then you go to ACB and Barcelona lets him rock out as like the primary when he's on the court. And he played well. Like he makes some really, really eye-opening plays for an 18-year-old. And why I love Bolmaro because I just think he has a skill set that doesn't come around very often with his height, handle, and passing ability. And just like he's going to create advantages with that handle. He's really damn smart. He's super creative, and he just sees things. And on ball defensively, he's a monster, like absolute monster. He just devours dudes. And the problem is if he gets picked by the wrong team who puts him in the wrong role, he ends up like he is in Argentina, playing off the ball, where he's not super comfortable shooting catch and shoot threes, and he's just not going to make a big impact there. For Leandro Bolmaro to be the best player he can be and probably be a positive NBA player, he's going to need on-ball reps. So that probably means a draft and stash and either keep him with Barcelona or bring him to the G League, like whatever it takes. I don't think the best path for him is to like get on an NBA team and get on NBA floor as quickly as possible. So there's a lot of nuances to his development that may or may not happen. But if we're talking baseline skills and potential, he's got to be one of the more intriguing guys.
Yeah, I agree. And even though I watched him live in that tournament under 19s last year, and I wasn't impressed. I mean, I felt like his reputation was bigger than his game at that particular tournament. But one of the things I did like was that he played hard. And even though he didn't shoot the ball well off the ball, every time he cut, it was with a purpose. Mm-hmm. And so I think that if he can become a more consistent shooter with the way he cuts and moves off the ball, I think he can become even more of a dangerous, playmaker. The team that I thought was best fit for him, and based off of your list, he wouldn't be available, but I like him in Utah. I think that he can learn under Joe Ingles. I think in their offense, where he'd have an opportunity to play with the ball in his hands, even though they still have Donovan Mitchell. But I think that Quinn Snyder is a creative coach, and he's creative enough and smart enough to know that I'm gonna put Bolmaro in the position to play to his strengths. So I think Utah's like 25 or so. I mean, as of now, of course, it can change. But yeah, I like him a lot too. I mean, this is the highest I've seen him. I mean, I think like Tankathon may have him like the first pick in the second round. I've seen like the late 20s. But yeah, I definitely like his potential. I like what he brings to the table. And like I mentioned earlier, I really like wing initiators and guys that can make plays for other on the wing, and that's what he does.
Yeah, I love the Utah fit because we talked about heavy pick and roll teams, and they're one of them. And when you run a lot of pick and rolls, that means you have multiple guys getting touches on the ball. So let's say he's playing off the ball, then they run that second pick and roll and he's getting it, and the defense is already semi-tilted, and then he can capitalize off that. Like, I think that's a reasonable fit for him for sure. I'd be shocked if I saw him, like, if he actually gets drafted in the top 20 at this point, because that just doesn't really – things can change. The draft's like 3 months away. But based off where his like hype is at right now, he probably is going to be more of a late first, early second guy, which is I'm cool with. But the problem is, and this is something you see with like someone like Taylor Horton-Tucker last year. Like Taylor Horton-Tucker needs to be on the ball. That's where you're going to get your value of him. And the later he falls, the less likely it is that he gets put in a position where he can get on-ball reps. Now, Taylor Horton-Tucker got a little lucky, and Clutch Connections found him a way to Staples Center. But with Bolmaro, it's just the reason why I can't get all the way there is because there's just a chance he gets picked by some team who's just going to get him on the NBA court immediately because they think that's the best developmental path for him. And then he stands in the corner, shoots 31% on catch and shoot threes, is a pesky defender, but never really gets to show off what makes him special and what makes him different. So with Bolmaro, there's a lot of question marks, and that makes me hesitant because it's not as easy as like plug and play. Like, he's going to need reps, and whoever drafts him and whoever's developing him is going to need to be patient. But I do think if they are patient, they do use him right, I think you could have something special there.
Yeah, I agree. But I also feel like if you're a GM and you watch him and you draft him, you have to know that he's a high IQ guy and he plays defense, and you have to know his strengths. But then again, you have to make sure your coach understands that also. And so a lot of times some coaches are playing for their next check and they want to put guys out there now. They don't want to develop. It's a tough situation. And really, in order to win and get the best results out of a player, you have to have everybody on the same accord. And sometimes these teams are in the lottery because they can't get everybody on the same accord. So, all right. So before we finish off, where do you have Wiseman on your board?
I have him either 15 or 16 right there.
Okay.
Right in Bolmaro in that group. And that group is pretty interchangeable to me. If you told me you wanted to put Wiseman ahead of Haliburton, right behind Okoro, or ahead of Pat Will, or right behind Pat Will, I wouldn't really. I don't know. With Wiseman, like the physical tools are there, the measurements are there. I just don't know if it translates to like a winning center. And unless the center is a stud, you usually like fade centers. I think centers are probably one of the more replaceable positions and archetypes you can get in the league. But we'll see. Time will tell.
All right, man. It's our second time doing it, and each one has been great, man. You're definitely one of my favorite guests I've had on this podcast. I appreciate you taking the time out. Second time this week. And for those that are listening, where can they find your work at?
So you can find me on Twitter at Jake in the Paint, and then my website link is in my bio there. But if you just want to go on Chrome, Safari, whatever, you can find me and all my work at jakeinthepaint.com. All the pieces I've written over the past 2 years will be there. I don't recommend you go read my piece from 2 years ago, but if you really want to humor yourself, you're more than welcome to. But
I think they should. Growth. Like, I'm big on growth. Like, think of it like a player, like, I don't know. I think like as a person that does the scouting thing, it's tough. For one, you have to have the confidence to put yourself out there, because once you put it out there, it's out there. You know, people can
Yep.
read back and criticize you for whatever, you know, comments you made or just whatever that you've done in the past. But what I like about it is like we're no different than these players in a sense. Growth, you know, like I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I think about like a guy that was, you know, as a rookie, he was terrible, but he just got better and better and better because he put in the work. And so I think in the same case with you, I mean, how if you were, it's like 2 years ago, you're probably what, 16, 15?
Yeah, I was 16. Yeah, I
So,
was 16 2 years ago.
I mean, like, what 16-year-old is gonna be like this super polished scout? And I mean, scouting is not as simple as just watching a guy play. I mean, you have to be able to project long term, and even like the little things that you point out that you look for. If a guy jumps off of 1 foot, if a guy his mechanics change all the time. So that's the reason why I think that people should go back and just read other people's old stuff, is because you can see the growth. I mean, hopefully in 2 years from now, somebody can go back and listen to my podcast and be like, man, he's come a long way. He's gotten a whole lot better. And then same thing from my website. I remember when I started my website 2 years ago, just from like, even just the way it looked.
Yeah.
I had to grow
I
and
can relate to
and
that.
learn all that stuff. So yeah, man. I mean, I think it's dope to keep all your old stuff up there. And I'm sure there's people who've been following you since day one and they can like keep up with the progression. So
yeah.
I mean
listen, if you want to talk about looks evolving, I was on Tumblr until a year ago. So there you go.
Yeah, I haven't heard the word Tumblr
that's as
in a
good
while.
as it gets.
Yeah. Growth. That's all it's about is growth.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's concrete growth right there.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we can do another one. I definitely want to get you on around, I think it's August 20th now, when they said that they'll announce the lottery or they'll have the lottery selection. So I definitely want to have you on in that week to come up with your updated list and updated fits. So once again, this is Raphael with NBA Draft Junkies with Jake from Jake in the Paint. Thanks for everybody tuning in. If you want to follow us or follow my podcast, it's on Apple, it's on Spotify, and then if you're watching on YouTube, then that's where you can find the podcast at. If you're listening to the podcast, but you want to see the actual video to this, and I may add some video clips, you can find me at NBADraftJunkies.com. That's the website, and then NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube. So once again, this is Raphael, NBA Draft Junkies with Jake Rosen. Thanks for tuning in, and we are out.